All right, yes, we are back. Thank you very much for keeping faith with us. And of course, as promised, he's here with us. Right Honorable Sobro Dola Dimeji Bankole DB, candidate, governorship candidate of the Action Democratic Party. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
All right. Of course, largely, it's going to be interactive between us here and those listening. But Right Honorable Dimeji, I want you to clear the air on some very significant stories. What's your involvement that start to do with this Adaton Ibadan Road?
What do you mean, my involvement?
The story is that the road was contracted, awarded while you were the speaker, and that it was not done.
That is not correct.
Okay.
What I do know about that was that, yes, there was major influence from Abeokuta here for that job to be done and constructed. And I believe there was a tender for it sometime in the beginning of 2011. But I remember that the budget was passed immediately after the elections. And a few months later, when the new parliament came in, the budget was amended. So funds provided for that job were somewhat removed while the amendment was going on to different parts of the nation. And this is what happens when the major influencers of a particular project are no longer in office, and then those who come into office can influence where the funds go to. I believe that's what happened at that time. So it was never actually awarded. The tender was, of course, the process was on. But as you know, in Yoruba land, once you're no longer there, they can do whatever they want to do with the funds to go to other projects with those who are in charge at that time.
So clearly, you heard it was never awarded as being produced by people. Okay, the other project is the Wasimi Airport.
That one was awarded. In fact, I know that you're talking about the Abeokuta Airport at Wasimi.
Yes, Abeokuta,
yes, that was
Abeokuta
awarded
Airport at Wasimi.
in sometime in 2010, I believe. Funds were provided for it. Again, when I left office, amendments were made to the budget. At that time, we had no influence over these amendments any longer. Those who were in office influenced those funds to go to other airport projects across the nation. Again, this is what happens when you lose an opportunity to influence, support, continue major projects that can benefit your own constituency, so to speak. So again, I say, perhaps the 2011 decision in Abeokuta Federal Constituency by those who voted, with the benefit of hindsight, was not particularly a smart one, in the sense that we lost the opportunity to continue those major projects in our constituency.
And that you are seeking to come to and govern Ogun State, what are those things you think you are bringing into governance that will be different?
Oh, well, first of all, I think we should realize that we don't think Ogun State should suffer what it did suffer in 2011 in terms of those projects. Projects by the current government must be continued and completed. And you know, my track record shows that when we had that issue with Otter Bridge in 2008, and I was consulted about that, we did something about it to make sure that the Otter Bridge was completed. I was hoping that this government would have completed some of the projects that we started as well. But I make it bold to you today that the government of ADP will not turn Abeokuta or Ogun State into an abandoned project. From my experience, we need to continue and finish these projects as soon as possible.
All right, like I said, it's going to be interactive. I'll let you be involved early enough before we take the break for the 10 o'clock news, and after we return from the 10 o'clock news. So, get ready. But let me just remind us of the simple rules. Please, we will not tolerate any insult or abuse of any individual or personality or group while you make your comment. You don't have to agree with my position, but in doing that, you must be as civil, as diplomatic, as matured as you can in the choice of words and language that you will use. Don't come out with clips you cannot substantiate. No falsehood. That's what I mean. And please remember to move away from your radio when you are putting that call through. And you have perhaps less than 2 minutes on this occasion. I'm sure so many people want to also have their voices heard. So say a minute each.
Just go straight to the
straight
question.
to the question,
And then leave the stage for others. If
yeah.
you have rejoined us, you have any other comment that you want to make, you can send that as messages to 32120, or you tweet at RockCityFM. Right, Honorable Dimeji Bankole, many people have said that you're throwing your heart into the ring as regards the governorship race is not well thought out. And why do these people have this impression? Is because they believe that the incumbent who has spent 8 years is from Ogun Central, an Egba man and a woman, and is leaving. And so why should an Egba man be trying to lay claim to the throne once again? So what's your response to this set of people who believe that this is not well thought out?
Well, this is Nigeria. This is a democracy. Anyone can express their opinion, and that's the beauty about what we do. But the facts are clear, in the sense that those who are not going to eat before going to bed tonight in Yoruba land, or Ijebu land, or in Egba land, or Awuri land, or Ketu land, or Anago land, or Igun land, whichever part of Ogun State, do not care who is in charge, so long as they can take care of their family, look after themselves, and go about their business. Those who are not going to eat tonight are not interested in where the particular person comes from, unless it's going to butter their bread. Ogun State is very dynamic, and the problems on the ground are so crucial that you need to put your best foot forward. This is the first time in the history of Yoruba land that the elderly generation will be looking after their children as well as their grandchildren at the same time. That is a disaster. This is the first time in Ogun State that we are beginning to lock our mothers into public toilets because they cannot pay a loan of 2,000 naira. This is the first time in Ogun State that thousands are coming out of university, out of vocational studies, polytechnics, and there is no hope, no future of work for them. As far as I'm concerned, we now need to get involved, intervene with all experience that we have garnered over the past, and make sure that we provide a future for all people of Ogun State.
All right, now let us talk about the issues of education. This government, the government, built many model schools. Many are not in session as we speak, are not operational, as it were. Existing schools are in a state of dilapidation. If you take some time to actually visit some of the schools, I've gone to Mount Alma Mater, African Trade Grammar School. It's in a state of dilapidation. You almost weep when you see them. What's your plan? One, for the model schools. If you become the governor of Ogun State, what will you go ahead with the plan as it is? Are you going to convert it to something else? What are you going to do with the existing schools, especially those that used to be the pride of Ogun State?
Well, the history or the story of the model school is for all of us to see. I'm sure this government, with the benefit of hindsight, perhaps would have managed it in a different way. It doesn't appear that it's been very, very successful, but we will need to look into the facts when we get into government. But education in Ogun State is actually, or indeed in Nigeria, particularly Ogun State now, is actually in a worse state than we realize. Primary education is the most important education in our life. And that is a major function of the local government as well as primary health. Now, you know that in Ogun State and in other parts of Ogun State, it seems that funds for local government seems to get into a traffic jam when it gets to the governor's office. And therefore, what we need to do is now make sure that there is no jam anymore, to make sure that when those funds are coming from Abuja, they go directly to the local government so they can fund primary education and primary health. The most important education to a human being, the one that concerns his cognitive skills and non-cognitive skills, are those that he or she gets between the ages of 4 and 11. And that's primary education. And if funds are not getting to local governments, primary education are being starved. And when you destroy the capacity of the young person to develop to an optimal level, then what you're going to get at the secondary school and tertiary is more or less half-baked as far as the health and education is concerned. So what we intend to do is make sure that local government begin to function, support it, institutionalize this practice and develop it so that it can function as a government of the community. It is the breakdown of the local government system that brought up the ideas of the CDAs and CDCs. And if you must know, CDAs and CDCs have invested about 5 billion of their own personal money in the last few years in Ogun State. These are the people that need to be supported, encouraged to take over local governance through negotiations of all types, so that our community can develop and the family structure can remain stable, and so on and so forth. So that's where we intend to look at, first of all. From then, we can begin to now adjust and make right things that have gone on in the secondary and tertiary institutions. Yes, of course, I went to public school here in Abeokuta and Baptist Boys High School. I understand the capacity of those schools, and I understand what has happened to them. You must realize in 1970, I have very little problem with the followership. I have disagreement with the leadership. Once the leadership is right, the followership will follow according to how the leaders are moving. That scheme, social scheme you're talking about, among many other schemes in Nigeria and in the state, is suffering from leadership problems. If we can sort that out with the right set of people with the right character, then we can begin to move forward. You know that, as we say in the intellectual field, that power corrupts absolutely. It's not something that I actually agree with. I think power reveals absolutely. Therefore, it's the duty of you gentlemen here and those of the electorate to make sure that you have a very good idea of the character of those who are in leadership, or those you want to put in leadership positions. Knowledge can always be turned on and off, but character never changes. So it's important to me, and it's important to you, it's important to the electorate, the character of the person, not necessarily where he comes from, but the character, the content of his character is most essential. Because basically what we're asking you to do is to give us your children for 4 years at least, for us to look after them. Give us your parent for 4 years to take them to the right hospitals if they don't feel very good. To give us your grandchildren to send them to school. And when the graduates come out of school, find work for them. Make the environment feasible, appropriate for them to survive as businessmen, small skills and whatever. That's what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to give us your family for us to take care of their needs for 4 years. That's important, and that entirely depends on character.
All right, sir, let me quickly ask you, what's your relationship like with the incumbent Senator Bankole?
Mommy, no anymore. He's our senior brother.
Is it true that there is some kind of agreement or working relationship with you ahead of this governorship election?
No, not at all. We're not
with him or with anybody.
No, not at all. We're not of the same political party. And but when he hands over to me, then we will begin to work together and see how we can make Ogun State better.
Come back. It's still the 2019 election studio of ROCKCIYFM, Nigeria Decides. And on this segment, we have at the studio one of those seeking your mandate to become the governor in Ogun State in this 2019 election, the governorship candidate of the ADP, Right Honorable Dimeji Bankole, former Speaker of the House of Representatives. Um, right Honorable, before we open the studio lines, it is pertinent that we look at the issues of your record when you were the speaker, and of course your achievements, which I think is propelling you to seek the people's mandate to become the governor. Um, what exactly would you pinpoint as your major achievements?
I don't think it's actually proper for me to be telling you what I did. I think that's improper. I think that will count to boasting and things like that. But as an investigative journalist as you are, you would have done your findings and you have come up with facts and figures of what we achieved in office. But since you've asked, the functions or duties of a member of the House of Representatives split into parts of representation, lawmaking, and influencing, oversighting, and all that sort of stuff. So if we look at oversight, you can. What most people talk about today is that completion of that Otter Bridge. It was a big relief to those people traveling to Abeokuta, to Otterside, Awuriside, and Nagbara, and all those kind of places. And today, when we go around the state, that's one of those things that people usually talk about. That it was an abandoned project, and that we made sure we finished it. The other one is this Wasimi or Iwikoro or Abeokuta airport that you mentioned. That, of course, funding was withdrawn from the minute we left office. If that had been completed today, you know what the economy of that particular area would have been like, and the multiplier effect on Abeokuta and indeed on where I stayed. That's the second major important thing. And one of the ones that we also find on the field that people talk about is capacity to make sure that jobs that are meant for indigenous of Ogun State through the federal system, civil service system, actually got to those people, and we're grateful for it. At the same time, we try to be as fair as possible with federal appointments. What more people do not realize is appointments, board appointments given to quite a few senior citizens from Ogun State were actually somewhat influenced by us at that time. I believe the current chairman of PDP, AYODO, today, was a beneficiary of such appointments and being was that a board appointment to Nigeria was at that time. Chibra Martin Square as well was a good father to us. Chibra really has. Imagine all these people are from Jebu,
From the East.
Ogun East, axis of Ogun State. We did not decide to bring everything to Abeokuta just because we're from Abeokuta. The two chairmen in Ogun State at that time and committees of the National Assembly were also from the Ogun West Senatorial District. I believe that was Honorable Akinlade and Honorable Akinlade and Honorable the current King Adeosi. Those were the two first time a Yewa person would be chairman of any committee in the House of Representatives in the history of Nigeria. Was also done at that time. So we try to be fair. We read the speakers from Ogun Central that we thought, look, when the chairman of committees come up, let us make sure that the other sides get it, and so on and so on and so forth. We also realized that Remo's side had not been chairman as well, so the gentleman at that time was also made chairman of the committee on communication as Honorable Salako. So this is how we try to be as fair as possible in the performance of our duties and so on and so forth. So we can go on and on different projects. It wouldn't be fair for me to mention well over 200 of them. We also made sure that the University of Abeokuta, University of Agriculture Abeokuta, benefited a lot from federal presence in making sure things were done. The Federal Medical Center as well was greatly improved at that time. In fact, after leaving office, my family and I still made a sizable donations of buildings worth well over 300 million to University of Abeokuta after I left office. So we never stop. We continue to to do things to make sure that our community benefits and so on and so forth.
If you say you never stop, Right Honorable, there are some people out there who sees you as one of those elites. In fact, some people will go further and say, how many of Ogun states did you know the terrain and the people? I want your reaction. Do you see yourself as one of those elites born with a silver spoon, bread and butter already prepared for?
Well, I am exceedingly grateful to my parents for giving me a wonderful childhood and upbringing. I have no apologies for that. I'm from a place called Iporoju. So you get to Odeda. From Odeda, you get to Olubu. From Olubu, you now take, if you can find the good roads, take a taxi that will take you to Iporoju. From Iporoju, we went to the Sodase Koro Bankole. Ketushi Walosi, really Bankole. By that time, you get into Obafemode. This is where my great parents are buried. And this is where I visit at least once a year. I live in Abeokuta here. Most people do not know that. But because I'm no longer speaker, I see no reason why I should be shouting up and down. Those in government now should be given the opportunity to take charge, and we shouldn't intervene openly too much. And I mind my business.
All right, thank you. Yes, I think we should open the telephone lines now. We have with us Right Honorable Dimeji Bankole, governorship candidate of the ADP Action Democratic Party for the elections, March 2nd election here in Ogun State. All right, yes, telephone line now open. Do we have somebody there?
Hello, good morning.
You are on, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Okay, but the leader in Odeda local government. I was hoping the gentleman making an accusation could actually back it up with facts. He could have told us what the question he asked and the answer I gave, and I could make it clear to him, because he's talking about character. And once you want to make an accusation, you better back it up with facts and figures, so that your character will not come into question, especially when you're accusing somebody else of something. So if you have an opportunity, please, for God's sake, call back so we can clear that up for all of us to move forward. As far as the question about pensioners are concerned, of course, like I said to you, my word is my bond, and we are known for that. I say again, we will not be tampering with pensioners' funds. Whatever has happened in the past, we will sit together with your executive, your representatives, and begin to negotiate on how we can sort out the issue of how you were treated before together, so we can move forward together. But as from the moment that we get into office, we're going to make sure that we do not do those things that has been done to you. You are elders, and you need to be treated with respect. Otherwise, on the issue of, am I ready to listen to new ideas? That's what we do every day. New ideas at all times. But your ideas better be backed up again by facts. It will never be based on assumptions. Yes, innovation is the key to development. Yes, of course, new ideas is something that will always be encouraging. Well, what's the other question? I believe that's it, really.
Yeah, I think it's basically.
All right, then let's come to the messages and the tweets. We have some here on the ROCKCIYFM Parliament. This is coming from Toyosi Craig. You seem to have been quiet since you lost the House of Rep election in 2011. Why did you not consider the Senate at all, based on your legislative experience? And if you become governor, what are your plans to improve our IGR? That's Dr. Motoyosi Craig sending that message. Another one says, please help us ask the guest what is the relationship between him and the House of Rep candidates and the senatorial candidates of the ADP. All right, we have another one here from Yemi Da Vinci. I was one of the people that worked for Honorable Bankole's Guba Beach in 2015. On January 3, 2015, in an expanded meeting in Ikeja GRA, some of us advised him to go to Senate instead. Why does he not like the Senate? And who is he voting for between Atiku and Buhari? Okay. Kule Gab says, what is your legacy in Abeokuta as a result of you being the Speaker of the House of Rep? You've handled that. What do you think people of the state can remember that will make them vote for you come March 2nd? Won't you be a rubber stamp of your dad if we vote you in? Okay. Olatunde Tijani says, I have two questions for Right Honorable Dimeji Bankole. Why didn't he contest on a more popular platform than the ADP? Why did he digress from contesting for a position in the National Assembly, which would have given him more leverage based on his experience? What gives you courage to come out and contest for the seat of the governor of the state? What's your plan for Yewa people who have been marginalized for years when it comes to infrastructure? Won't you render the state local government powerless and useless like this government has done? I'm talking about local government.
So we obviously can't take all. I think we can.
Too many questions here.
Let's just be breaking it up. But let me just advise or plead. Let me just advise or plead that once you have the question from somebody else being treated, there's no need in repeating
the question. All right, let's go to our Facebook fan page. Olaide Ashabi is saying, good morning, Honorable Bankole. There is something that is not clear to me about your ambition. Are you intending to take over from an Egbaman after just completing 8 years tenure? That has been handled. Adefola Lekon says, good day, sir. What are your plans for education in Ogun State? I think that has also been handled. Yakini Ibrahim says, good morning, Vice President Dimeji Bankole. Why do you think you are the best candidates to take over from the incumbent? All right. Adefola Lekon says, what are your plans for youth development and job creation for Ogun State youth? How do you intend to go about the mass employment program you promised, and what will be the requirements to get employed in your government? That's Adedayo Adeyemi. What are your plans for those that are not educated, those that are hardworking people, schools in general, hospitals, and those who didn't go to school but because they can't afford it or something like that? All right, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Please, for goodness sake, the issue of mass employment is paramount to us. So that question, I believe, is something that one must take on immediately. I keep saying that something happening in Ogun State has never happened before, indeed in Yoruba land, whereby you have a generation, an older generation, 30% looking after 70% of the population.
30%.
30% older generation
looking at the 70% of the younger generation.
Whereas in Yoruba land, what should be not the other way around. This younger generation of 70% includes children and grandchildren, which means that in 15 years from now, as the dependency ratio is changing towards 50-50, we're going to have a major problem. It means we're going to have a 50% population of older people in 20 years' time, most of which or whom have never worked before. Now, we can't afford to pay pensions of 30%. How can we afford to pay for 50%? Especially 50% that's not very experienced in working. That is a disaster to the social structure and extended family system. That's why we've come up with this idea that we need to find employment for as many people as possible. Now, that does not mean that government is going to employ you. No. What government is going to do is create the environment for you to get employed through the private sector, through informal markets and so on and so forth. Now, if we take the issue of AYODO, local government, which I've mentioned, and Agbara Estate, which is where the economic base of this state is. Now, as at today, no single major road is functional to that estate. It's functional to that local government. And therefore, if we continue to neglect that local government, our economy will suffer. When that economy suffers in that local government, it suffers across the state. Indeed, it suffers in the entire Southwest. Therefore, we have to pay incredible attention to that local government to develop it so that those companies can develop and open branches in other parts of the state. That way, we can begin to solve the short term and the medium term and the long term economic problems as well as employment issues. But in the short term, if those funds coming from Abuja to those local governments across the states get to those local governments, rural areas will begin to develop. If the local government decides to construct its local road, which is their responsibility, they would have to take contractors, engineers, graduates from that same local government, from that same community. To solve the electricity problem, the rest of it, or transformer, they would have to employ those people who are educated, vocational or otherwise,
from that area.
From that area. That way, the money begins to stay in that local economy and begins to have multiplying effect. So in the short term, we can begin to solve those employment problems shortly, like that, before we now get to the bigger bits. Now, it so happens that I am the vice president of a British agency called Africa House. Africa House UK, without applying for the word, decided to make me a director of their board. I'm also the president of Africa House Nigeria. Now, Africa House UK in Nigeria meant now. Africa House UK is an agency which is taking over the responsibility of trading activities with the rest of the world after Britain comes out of Brexit. Comes out of the European Union, the Brexit situation that they do have right now. When that happens, they will now have to trade with other countries, and the businesses that they can no longer do with the European Union. Now, Commonwealth nations are the number one target of the UK. African nations are part of the Commonwealth. So if they are going to deal with Commonwealth, my advice would be on that board is to deal with Africa. If they're going to deal with Africa, my advice on that board would be to deal with Nigeria. And if they're going to deal with Nigeria, my advice for that board is to deal with Ogun State. And if they're going to deal with Ogun State, my advice for that board is to deal with the economic complexity of Ogun State and resource center based in the border towns of Agbara Estate, or Adodo local government, local government, so we can take full advantage and develop our state economy and create employment for our young people. I believe that touches on the answer of
how are you
the
going
question
to
of
create
creating jobs.
maybe
With the
just
support
link that
of our
to
people.
what will you do for Yewa land? There's a question.
Oh, the same thing that we're doing for everyone. Now, when I was speaking, my track record was quite clear. Adodota, or should I say Otta Bridge, is not in Abeokuta. It was only a phone call from someone that made me intervene in that and solve that problem. Nobody asked me before and made sure that the chairman come into Ogun State from the National Assembly of Yewa extraction, because it was only fair to do so. So, when we talk about Adodota Local Government Economic Center, that's in Yewa land. It's not because it's in Yewa land, because it's a resource center and Yewa should benefit from it. So that is how this government will move forward based on fair play and equity.
Okay, another round of telephone calls quickly. 0909-146-9670. Hello, sir. Yes,
Hello, good morning.
you have to speak up, please. Thank you, Ajibola.
Good morning, Ajibola. Good morning, sir.
5 seconds, your question, please. How are you going to hold him accountable and responsible to all those things you have said? That's the
All right,
question.
that's it. Okay, let's take another.
Hello, somebody.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, morning. Thank you, morning. All right. All right, thank you. Okay, let's just take the two. Yeah.
Straight on. My dear brother, along with the many governor, that's God's doing. All of us can try and pray and do our best, but God, Almighty God, will decide. He's already even decided so. You're talking about whether we should support something from a different era. I remember clearly in 2011, I was a member of the PDP, and we all decided to support a UA candidate, and we supported it with all our resources. I even backed it up, even with my position as speaker. While we were scheming for a UA person to become, God in His wisdom decided wherever He wanted to go. So we have always supported anyone within a party, irrelevant to where it comes from. The same way we supported Otumba Daniel, who was also from minority Remo at that time. So we've always supported. My character has always supported and backed it up with everything. But when God speaks, who are we to say no to that? So I just advise you to continue to pray that the best person that would develop Ogun State is the one that, by God's grace, will become the governor of the state. And then the next question, but you see, it doesn't really matter what I say to you. What matters is what you have found out about the character of the person who is saying those things to you. And that's your duty. You would have to, like we say in Yoruba land, to have a mama efoko, wa koko lo shiwadi, ile to ti wa, báwo ná ṣe ń ṣe ń bẹ̀, kó tó gbọ́mọ tó fi iyebíye tán, kó tó mú lọ síbẹ̀ pé wọ́n bá ẹ tọ́jú ẹ̀ for the rest of our life. So you have to perform your duties. Go and find out, who are these people? What is their background? Fortunately for you and for me, I have served in government at the highest level before. And therefore the records are there for you to go and investigate and find out on your own. And you will not find us wanting. And you say you are from Obodo. Well, let me tell you something about us in this part of Ogun State. And I know this is the same situation in other parts. We are very critical about those that we put in position of authority. Look, in Egba land here, there's an arrangement of some sort, whereby we have Egba Bara, Egba Okiono, Egba Owu, Egba Gbagura, Egba Laki. And then when we get to Egba Laki, we have Egba Arin, Egba Eku, Egba Agbenyi. When we get to Egba Arin, you now see the Omoyamaru. Those are the ones given the responsibility of taking an alaki when one departs. Now that's a serious responsibility for those 5 major families. Now, but one of them is Eboro. The other 4 are Itoku, Kenta, Ijeun, Atiake. Now, Ekporo is actually strategic in the sense that whenever the Alake departs, the crown is kept among the Ekporo families in custody until the next Alake is chosen. Now, you tell me now, as an Ekporo man, and as the Asalu of Ekporo, one of those kingmakers, if Egba people can trust us in Ekporo land for the past 200 years, I think that's a record for you to trust me for 4 years, to give me your children and your parents to look after and make sure that they're fine. Thank you very much.
Alright, more telephones. We just take about 3. Toby, let's check out messages again after this first 3 calls. The next 3 calls. Hello. Morning.
Yes, good morning.
Tunde Omolaolu. Thank you.
The rules of this program, as addressed by these people here, is that we do not insult each other. It is possible to build roads by negotiating with the communities accordingly and paying proper compensation after it. It's all about negotiation, not about building roads in the sky. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your question. You can continue.
Your question, that's all right. Let's listen to him. Please.
I would listen to you, but try not to disrespect us either, as well. Can you continue with your question? Okay, thank you. I will now answer that question.
All right.
Can I answer the question?
Yes, you can. We are not taking any
You can answer the
telephone,
question.
or you can answer the question. We'll be checking out the messages.
Again, when you say we're building roads in the sky, you really need to understand that that's not what we can do. That's not what it's all about. So you perfectly deserve the answer that you got there. Because we are all here to serve our state together. We are all in trouble, and you need to contribute as well as I do as well. So the answer to your question is very simple, right? We will sit down, look at the finances of our state, and see how we can move this state forward. But it's important that we fix those roads in Agbara Estate. It is number one. It is the place whereby we get our resources from. So even if we have to now decide to prioritize roads that will be done, Agbara Estate, Adodo Ota, is a priority for the economy of this state, so that we can get the resources to finance those pension funds, to finance education, to make sure those companies develop and open branches all over the state. This is not about building anything in the sky. This is a serious matter, very serious matter. Ogun State is a serious matter. People's lives are serious matters. So breaking people's houses is extremely serious. So we will consider appropriately to make sure that things are done accordingly. So the welfare of the elderly, welfare of those young boys coming out of school, welfare of those companies, so that they don't keep closing down every day. So I take exception to your statement.
The network, because of the time we have.
No. He needs to understand that we're not fighting here. He just needs to understand that this is a very serious matter. Thank you.
Okay. Being critical of OGG, the first question for me.
Look, the job of every legislature is to be critical of the executive. Now, if the executive is not ready to answer those questions, well, that's just too bad. Osman Bengadana remains our senior brother, and when you want to get to disagreements in politics, then you leave it to us to have our disagreements. But when it begins to affect development, then you ask those in questions who you've been given the responsibility on how they've performed. As far as I'm concerned here, I have no apology for criticizing anyone who is not doing accordingly. And I'm not saying that about Dr. Magwina. I'm talking about anyone at all. As a legislature, that is your duty, that's your job. Now, in our world, executives don't like being questioned, and it leads to lack of development in a great deal. By the time we get into government, we will encourage the councillors to ask questions of the local government chairman, so that the funds are judiciously utilized. And at the same time, we would encourage the House of Assembly to question the governor and his commissioners on a daily basis to make sure that Ogun State funds are deployed and utilized accordingly. And that will lead to proper negotiation for development of the people of Ogun State. Thank you.
All right, let me quickly add this message. Anima Shawamoli says, "Sir, we heard that during your speakership in the National Assembly, you assisted many youth to gain employment as well as some projects. What is your plan for unemployed youth in your first 100 days that has been handled? How can you solve the problem of potable water in Adigbe and Abeokuta?"
And maybe
that's very important.
Yes, that's something that we thought about in 2009. We understand the Ogun State Water Corporation and structure is about 100 years old, and if you have not really developed much of the structure of the water structure system 100 years, and the population has gone more than 100-fold, then we're going to have problems. We tried to solve this problem at that time by encouraging OGUN River Basin Authority to get involved in the water structure system. I believe the major booster system were being deployed to Ogun State and indeed Abeokuta environment at that time. And from what I know, the contract has not been financed since we left office. It's one of those things that we encourage the National Assembly members working with us when we get into the state government office to work together with the National Assembly and the federal system to make sure that we solve Ogun State water problems.
All right. Any other one there? In the absence of any message.
Okay, let's squeeze in this message from Rashid Okenla. Right Honorable, you are tested and trusted and from a very good background. I can only wish you the best of luck. All right, that's just a comment, not a question. Let's take this one. What are you going to do about Mapoli issue? We'll look for what we should know.
I think my younger brother there does not want to go to Ipokia. Well, we will look at it. We will look at it and do the best we can given the circumstances. But what you should understand, my dear younger brother, that when students were asked to go to Algeria over 40 years ago, they also thought from Okege, they also thought Algeria was some bush somewhere that they didn't want to go. So some people have built Algeria to become what it is today. And if Algeria has now become a university, it is also important that some people also devote their time to build the new site in Ipokia as well, so that Ipokia can also be recognized as a functioning part of Ogun State. Thank you.
All right, that's the much we can take this morning on Citizens Forum Nigeria 2019 Election Studio, and of course Nigeria Decides. It's been the right honorable speaker, the former speaker rather of the House of Representatives and the governorship candidate of the ADP in Ogun State, Dimeji Bankole. Thank you so much for your questions, the comments on our Facebook page. Thank you. The tweets, and of course those who sent messages via the show, but of course those who called. Don't forget that the election campaigns will end today midnight, and of course make sure that you stick to that and ensure that you get to vote on election day. Saturday, that's the rec was here yesterday. He rolled out all the things that you must do to ensure that you go about your voting process peacefully at the polling unit. Thank you very much. Right, Thank
you for having me. It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
And it's important to remind all of us, go out and vote on Saturday.
And especially vote for my party, ADP, for Development of Ogun State. Action Democratic Party, ADP. Thank you very much, Ogun State.
All right, once again, thank you. God bless you all. God bless Nigeria. God bless Rock City. DELE, AYODO is my name.
And I am Toby Johnson. Have a wonderful Thursday.